names. Just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself before before we continue. So I've been in the cultural field for 36 years. I'm a museum person, I'm a musician. I've worked in everything from completely volunteer organizations all the way up to Kingslanding, which is a Crown Corp, municipal governments, conservation authorities. So I've kind of tried on every possible hat that you can have in the cultural field, whether it's natural or history. So Jonathan had reached out to me to kind of talk to you about some of the things that we experienced as part of the pandemic. And so I put together a little PowerPoint, which I'm going to talk over and I will not read the slides to you. They're mostly pictures because I personally don't like to be read to via Zoom. So I'm hoping everybody else feels that way. But feel free to, ask any questions that you have at the end, or even interrupt me, I guess. If, what we did here may not work for everyone else, but I think that certainly the way we approach things has been noted as successful, and we've been sharing our plans, I guess, with everyone who's asked for them. So thanks for inviting me today. So would you like me to share the screen, Darlene? All right, let me just get this here. Oops. Oh, let's see here. I'm gonna have to go back here for a second and show, there we go. Okay, so I just have to get the screen up. Sorry, I'm suffering from technical difficulties this morning. Why does it not want to go up there? Share screen.
No worries, Mary.
Yeah, no worries. I'm reaching across my desk too, which is not helping me at all. All right, share screen. All right. So you're probably going to end up with my sidelines there. So I apologize for that. Yeah, sorry about seeing the other parts. Can you see that, everyone? Everyone see?
Yeah.
You are getting the sidelines too on it, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Okay, so just to start back, the purpose of this, it's sort of the embracing COVID-19 and where we go from here. We all know that all of our restrictions are coming to an end, and in some way or another. And so I just wanted to take you through kind of quickly where we were with us at Kingslanding and how we approach this, because going forward, you're still going to have the same, we're going to have a lot of the same issues with fear and not knowing. And these are just some of the things that worked for us. We put together the COVID, our operational plan, and we put it together. I don't know how it was in Nova Scotia or PEI or Newfoundland, but we were given no direction in New Brunswick as to what this operational plan should include. And so I walked the site as a visitor, parking my car, thinking about signage and all that sort of thing as I walk through. And we put together a very large plan. Museums were scheduled to open up as part of phase 3 in New Brunswick in 2020. And as a result, I sent the plan up the pipeline, so to speak. And Kingslanding and all museums were moved to phase 2, and they allowed us to open in June. Many of you may not know this. Most people think that Kingslanding is a provincial organization. We are quasi-government, we're a Crown corporation. And really what that translates into is something very simple. We were not bailed out in 2020 or 2021. We lost $1 million worth of revenue. We lost, like many people, we lost 55% of our visitorship, but we still stayed open. We still welcome people because we shifted our focus from the people who were coming from away to the people who actually lived right in our own neighborhood. We brought all of our staff together, separated them all out, went through training. There was a lot of fear there from the staff. We didn't get into expensive changes. We bought some tablecloth material, plastic tablecloth, and built these frames around our admission counters and our axe and plow counters so that visitors and staff could stay safe. We did our own signage as well as used the government signage. going forward. And so if you opened in 2020, how many of you opened in 2020? Did most of you open? Yes, no, can't see any hands. So
Yes.
yeah, a lot of places here felt very uncomfortable about opening and opened in a minimal sort of way. And one of the things that was really obvious on opening day was our visitors did not know what to do when they got here. They were afraid. They didn't understand, they understood about the masking. We made masking mandatory in June of 2020. The province didn't make it mandatory until October of 2020. And as a result, they really didn't know what to expect. And the reason I did that was so that our visitors could stay safe and so our staff could stay safe. And we had a lot of fear with our staff, and I certainly didn't want them all to kind of quit. So one of the things that we did was we put together a greeter program where we welcomed people. We had staff people out front who, and this was based on a telephone call I had with a service provider one day. I called to ask a question about my furnace, and the person on the other end of the phone said, good afternoon, ET Mechanical, what can I do to make you smile today? And she just completely lifted the mood. And so we put together a program for greeters, for our staff to greet all of our visitors. We put a focus on our community. We knew no cruise ships were coming in. All 170 of our bus tours had canceled. We had no school groups coming in because the schools couldn't go out with, to a group of larger than 40. So we really had to focus on the people who were coming here on a regular basis, who lived locally, because as you all know, every province was shut down to everyone else. And so we focused on that, and we made things that were our usual things, seasons passes. Our seasons passes used to have only one value added part of that, and that was that you could take it and get into other places that were listed on the back for a reduced admission. But there was really nothing else to make those people feel special. So we started focusing on our community and offering them things, season pass holders, things that nobody else could get. And so while everyone else's season passes numbers were going down, ours continued to skyrocket. So because they felt like they were special, they understood what their role was in keeping us afloat during the pandemic. And so we put a lot of things out that really doesn't fit with the background, but you see that we had we put 65 of these hand sanitizing stations around the site, tried to have them kind of blend in the background, and eventually those things will now be turned into birdhouses, and we'll be putting them up in the trees, so we'll be able to reuse them. You'll see all of our staff was in masks, all of our visitors, and we simply adapted. Now I know this doesn't make a perfect picture when you're a visitor to come in with somebody with a mask, but we had no choice, right? So in terms of, I don't know how familiar you all are with Kingslanding, but I suspect fairly familiar. One of the best things about coming to Kingslanding is the King's Head Inn. And in the early days of the pandemic, we were not permitted any indoor dining. So we had to think outside the box, and we came up with a takeout window outside of we turned a regular window into a takeout window, and we created a garden outside where we could have picnic tables and where the public could sit and enjoy their lunches. We also held a lot of entertainment things in there because we got this area licensed so that you could go out and have your favorite beer and sit outside and watch the horses go by. Staff continued to be in costume. We adopted using tongs to feed people. This gentleman here was a long time, he is a long time Kingslanding staff person. He was the first person to tell you, I had no idea what this man looked like until late October 2020. He'd worked for me for almost 6 months and I had never seen his face. He was terrified of COVID. And we had a lot of staff that were. And so they backed themselves into corners of buildings and didn't come out. And now he is, now in 2022, you would be hard pressed to escape where he is located because he talks for so long that you can't just pop in to see how he's doing because he has completely turned the corner. And part of that was, adjusting and also seeing what we were putting in place. We were able to offer Christmas events, dinner in the houses. And what we did really was we focused on everything that had been done in the past at Kingslanding, a lot of things that Kingslanding had done before. And we took ourselves back right to our early beginnings in the 70s. When Kingslanding was first open, most of the indoor activities had to be held outside, because of the size of the houses, as well as some of the renovations that were going on. We did a lot of outdoor activities. We repositioned ourselves as an outdoor museum or open air museum and promoted that. And that is stuck with us kind of going forward. We reached out to our community through constant social media, as well as education programs that were online. I understand that not everybody runs a living history site. There's gallery museums. Other gallery museums move their things outside as well. I talked with a number of them who moved their activities out, so they were not doing anything inside. They took on new roles and looked at education programs and how you could deliver them outside, historic walks, anything to engage your community. Because at this point, as we all know, we were all going a little stir crazy. And the only way to solve that problem was to offer something that would get people out. And this past year has been very difficult. And to just give you an example of things that we did just to try, we've never been open on Family Day. And this year we opened for 3 hours, expecting 30 to 50 people to come through, very low day. No, we don't have to worry about anything. We let people bring their dogs. One of our staff persons spent hours tying poop bags to little milk bones so people would pick up. And because there were no animals on site, other animals, we were allowed, we could have other dogs and things on site. And in 3 hours, we saw 703 people come through. So that told us that, despite the fact that we're 20 minutes from Fredericton, 90 minutes from Moncton, we're sort of in a middle of nowhere. It's not like we have a city center that's right there that we're part of. We asked people where they were from when they came, and people were from St. John, they were from Moncton, they were from St. Andrews. And I asked, I was walking around on site with my green hat, and I asked people why they came. And they said, well, we wanted to go for a nice outdoor walk. We know none of the buildings are open. And in fact, they saw a lot of how we treat the buildings. A lot of the buildings doorways are covered over. And they just found it was amazing. It was a new thing to try right in their own neighborhood. And it cost us nothing. All the staff that worked that day took another day off. But it showed that we were trying to engage our community. And so that was sort of a rediscovering what we were there for. At one time, you could walk around Kingslanding at any time, during its open hours, and not be charged anything and just go for a good walk. So that's now led us to looking at developing a walking group, so people can come and walk anytime that they want. Instead of running from COVID, the one thing we did was that we embraced it. We knew we were going to be with it, and we're still going to be with it for some time to come. Even if all of our restrictions are lifted at the end of March, there's still going to be fear. People are still going to be wearing masks because they don't want to come in contact with someone. Just like when we dropped our mask requirements in August of last year, I think it was, a lot of the staff opted to continue to wear their masks. And by looking at sort of your old practices before you really got underway in your various areas, we resurrected old favorite things. We looked at our children's programming, and children's programming is kind of like shooting fish in a barrel. Schools want a place to bring kids, and they're looking for a great outing for them, but there's nothing for adults. And so we started looking at adults, and we started holding adult evening programs. We held a CD launch, and a band came, and it was an adult only. There were about 75 people. We were able to stay socially distant. Kings Landing has the Visiting Cousins program and Family and Kin, and that's a program that has seen over 8,500 children from around the world go through it. Evening, they can stay overnight. We have offered, we couldn't offer that because we were restoring the building, but also because all day camps and things like that, or all overnight camps, were canceled. We started offering it so that adults could also come. And amazingly, adults signed up to be to come and be part of the Kings Landing crew for the day. And so they would show up, we outfitted them in a costume, and they participated as part, they paid too. That was shocking. They paid money to come in and be part of a day camp for us. And they came in and participated. And then on the Monday, most of them called to be volunteers. And Kings Landing had wiped out its volunteer program several years ago when the staff became unionized. And as a result, we ended up at the end of the year, we had 18 new volunteers who we can count on for all kinds of programming. So we had the Pass to the Past program. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's a program that we offer with the library, the local libraries here in New Brunswick, that we invite people, they can go to their local library, they can check out a pass and enter Kings Landing for free. We divided that into 2 weeks in June and 2 weeks in September. And on each day saw between 600 and 800 people come through. And all of those people were new audiences. Most of the visitors on those days were new Canadians. And they were amazed by what we had to offer. And the best part was that they did return during the summer and paid to come in. So they were introduced to something that they would not have had even thought of going to, but their local library said, have you been to this place? And so we ended up as a result with a significant number of visitors and then season pass holders. We ended, generally speaking, our season passes we sell about 250 to 290 a year. We ended last year at 489 seasons passes. And a lot of those people were new people who had never been here. All staff is in costume, even our maintenance team. So our maintenance guys are out on site doing repairs during the day. And we just kind of looked at how to make it the best of a bad situation and to find out what the visitors wanted. And instead of waiting, essentially, instead of waiting for someone to knock on our door, we knocked on their doors. We came into there. We were constantly, we have an amazing marketing person who was always putting things up at Kings Landing, up on our social media, everywhere. And we built the community, the support, instead of waiting for all those tour buses. Kings Landing in 2019 experienced a rush in motor coach tours. And during those motor coach tours, I wasn't here. So I think it's fair to say I arrived here in January 2020, and 6 weeks later, we went into the pandemic. So I was not all that familiar with New Brunswick, and somehow we still saw 18,000 visitors that year. And this year we are almost at 30,000 visitors, which rivals the 5-year average leading up to the pandemic. It was about 34,000. And so at the end of next weekend, with any luck, after our second Maple weekend, we'll hit that milestone. And the important thing about that milestone is that it wasn't bus tours. It was our own community, people coming from here, because, you know, the tourists come in, you know, I don't know what most of you, the tourists are here in the good weather, and we appreciate them, and the people coming from away and motor coaches or cruise ships or anything like that. But they're not what's going to sustain us going forward. What sustains us is the people who are in our own backyard. And so that's what we focused on. So we had some key lessons learned about all of this, that we're all in it together, not in the same boat. We're all in the same boat, but not in the same water. We did a lot of things with staff. We created an ideas group because we have some staff who have been here for as long as 42 years. And they saw how Kings Landing began, and they came out with ideas about how we could go back to those grassroots and go forward, using some of those things, not repeating. Kings Landing, like a lot of museums, had fallen into the habit of, well, we've done the same event on the same weekend for the last 20 years. Why would we change it? you need to change it, right? So we did a lot of, we revamped all of our exhibits, our events. We changed our organizational structure, brought all kinds of new things in, and even the maintenance guys. Still one of the most heartwarming things I ever saw was the day, opening day, was a group of the maintenance staff standing in the parking lot, adjusting each other's cravats and hats, so that when they went on site, they actually felt like they were part of the team and that they looked good. And we've created that team. And it's, you're not a team because you work together. You're a team because you trust each other, and you respect each other, and you care for each other. And I think that's one of those words that's often overused. And by creating these sorts of ideas groups and inviting everyone in to be part of the solution, that's what made us survive, despite the fact that we lost $1 million in revenue, and our visitation went down, and there was no bailout from the province. So we had to make hard decisions and cut contracts short. But when people came back in 2021, we were able to call everyone back. And we only finished out the year in 2020 at about $130,000 deficit, which was not too bad. And this year, despite the many conflicting and changing direction that we've received from the province, between going from a color rating level to level 1, 2, and 3, a lot of confusion. Despite all of that, we've been very, very successful. And in fact, I was told fairly recently that we were one of the only places that actually saw an increase in visitation and in revenues. And again, we had only 480 people come through in a bus tour format, as opposed to previous years where there were 15 to 16,000 in a bus tour format. So it's been more about our local people. So these are some of the things that we learned. I promise you I wouldn't read you the screen. So feel free, I'll just leave that one up. The biggest thing is change is inevitable. And instead of running from it, you have to embrace it and get others to embrace it, and appreciate what you have. You all have wonderful sites that you work at, Kawartha Lakes. I mean, living where I live, it's like being in the Kawartha Lakes or the Muskokas. But it's here in New Brunswick. They're beautiful places. And, that's how we got through, was by reaching backwards and talking to the community and talking to our staff for all of these great ideas. So, we suffered from a lot of internal issues in 2020. If you look at what my organizational chart looked like in 2020, 2022 does not resemble that. We've had to go through a lot of change. We've had to go through some downsizing. And despite the fact that we've gone through some downsizing, we've still seen an increase in visitation and community support. So, Jonathan, did I cover everything? I know we talked a lot on the phone, but if anybody has any questions or